The Parthian Empire, the Shadow Kings of Persia. In the endless deserts of Persia, where the wind carries whispers of lost empires, a forgotten dynasty once rose to defy the greatest powers of its age. They were horsemen from the steppes, fierce, elusive, and unstoppable. Their arrows humbled Rome, their trade linked east and west, and their rule revived the pride of Persia. This is the story of the Parthians, the Shadow Kings who ruled between worlds. The rise from the ashes of Alexander's empire. The story begins in the aftermath of Alexander the Great's death, 323 BCE. His sprawling empire was carved up among his generals, and Persia fell under the control of the Seleucid Empire. For nearly a century, the Seleucids ruled vast lands stretching from the Mediterranean to Central Asia, but their empire was too vast, too diverse, and too fractured to last. In the northeastern Iranian province of Parthia, a hardy nomadic people known as the Parnai, part of the Dahi confederation of tribes, were watching closely. Around 247 BCE, their leader Arsaces I rebelled against Seleucid authority, seizing Parthia and Hyrcania. His successors would gradually expand this small uprising into one of the most formidable empires of the ancient world. A kingdom between worlds. The Parthians built an empire stretching from Mesopotamia to the borders of India, controlling the heartlands of ancient Persia and the crossroads of Eurasian trade. Their capital cities, Nisa and later Ctesiphon near modern-day Baghdad, became centers of wealth and culture. Unlike the rigid bureaucracies of earlier Persian empires, the Parthians governed through a feudal system. Local kings and nobles, often semi-independent, owed allegiance to the Arsacid monarch but retained significant autonomy. This loose structure made the empire resilient. It could survive internal crises, but also made unity fragile. They embraced Zoroastrianism as their main faith, yet tolerated a vast mosaic of beliefs, from Greek gods to Buddhism. Their art reflected this blend. Greek-inspired statues stood beside Persian motifs and steppe designs. The Parthians were, above all, masters of adaptation. The Parthian warrior and the bow. In battle, the Parthians were unmatched horsemen. Their cavalry, light, fast, and deadly, revolutionized warfare. The term Parthian shot still echoes in military history, a tactical maneuver in which a mounted archer would feign retreat, then twist backward in full gallop to shoot a deadly arrow at the pursuing enemy. It symbolized Parthian warfare, deceptive, swift, and devastating. The Roman legions learned this lesson the hard way at the Battle of Carrhae, 53 BCE. There, the Parthian general Surina annihilated a Roman army led by Crassus, one of Rome's most powerful men. Thousands of Roman soldiers were killed or captured, and the Parthians secured a reputation as the only power capable of humbling Rome in open battle. Clash of Titans, Parthia and Rome. For centuries, the Parthians and Romans waged a cold and hot war across Mesopotamia and Armenia. Neither could destroy the other. Rome, with its disciplined legions, and Parthia, with its elusive horse archers, fought a long series of wars that drained both empires but created one of the ancient world's greatest geopolitical rivalries. Armenia often served as the chessboard of their struggle, switching allegiance between Parthia and Rome. Despite occasional defeats, the Parthians maintained their independence and continued to serve as the buffer state between the Greco-Roman West and the Chinese East.
Trade and culture, the Silk Road guardians. The Parthians were not only warriors, they were also dealers in diplomacy and trade. They controlled the vital Silk Road, linking China, India, and the Mediterranean. This gave them immense wealth and influence as middlemen between empires. Chinese silk, Indian spices, Roman glass, and Persian textiles all passed through Parthian hands. Their cities flourished with merchants, scholars, and ambassadors. Greek continued to be used as a diplomatic language, but Parthian and Middle Persian became more dominant, signaling the gradual Persianization of the empire. Decline and fall. By the 2nd century CE, internal struggles weakened the Parthian state. Noble families grew too powerful, and rival claimants to the throne plunged the empire into civil wars. Meanwhile, the Romans renewed their attacks under emperors like Trajan and Septimius Severus, briefly capturing Ctesiphon. The final blow came from within Persia itself. In 224 CE, a new power rose from Persis, Fars, the homeland of Cyrus and Darius. Ardashir I, the founder of the Sasanian dynasty, rebelled against the last Arsacid king, Artabanus IV. The battle ended with the death of Artabanus and the fall of Parthia. Thus began the Sasanian Empire, which would go on to restore the ancient grandeur of Persia and become Rome's new adversary. Legacy of the Parthians. Though overshadowed by the Achaemenids before them and the Sasanians after, the Parthians left an indelible mark on history. They preserved Persian identity during an era of Greek and Roman dominance, and they perfected the balance between nomadic freedom and imperial governance. Their political flexibility, their art that blended East and West, and their mastery of mounted warfare influenced empires for centuries to come. In the echoes of desert winds and the legends of ancient writers, the Parthians remain the shadow kings of Persia, guardians of a crossroads civilization that bridged the world's great powers.
Clothing, culture, and traditions of the Parthian Empire. Parthian clothing was elegant and practical for their equestrian lifestyle. Nobles wore long-sleeved tunics, trousers, and flowing cloaks fastened with ornate brooches. Silk and fine wool were common among the elite, while commoners dressed in simpler linen garments. Bright colors and intricate embroidery showed wealth and rank. Women often wore long robes with veils or shawls, adorned with jewelry of gold, silver, and precious stones. Hairstyles and headgear varied across regions, but both men and women prized appearance and status in dress. Culturally, the Parthians were patrons of art, poetry, and architecture. Their palaces combined Greek columns with Persian designs, and their sculptures showed a new, expressive realism. Greek and Persian gods were worshipped side by side, but the old Iranian faith, reverence for fire and Ahura Mazda, remained strong. Tradition bound Parthian nobles together through loyalty and family honor. Feasting, hunting, and horsemanship were central to their way of life. Their famed cavalry, armored horsemen known as cataphracts, reflected both their martial spirit and aristocratic pride.